Good evening, Safe Space family. Thank you so much for joining us once again. For those of you that have not been by before, Safe Space is a place of safety. It is a place of exchanging ideas, a place of prayer, a place of encouragement. It is a place to gain knowledge. And tonight, we have an educational powerhouse with us, Dr. Sheila Thomas. Dr. Thomas has over 31 years of experience in the educational realm. She is a consultant, a parental consultant. She is a teacher, a college professor, an author, a trainer. I could go on and on. Her resume is quite extensive and impressive. I had the opportunity to meet and see Dr. Thomas in her element at a women's conference that I attended back in March. She was one of the guests, and her message immediately captivated me. It was something a very close friend of mine that's an educator of over 30 years and I had discussed recently. Little did I know that Dr. Thomas had already developed an entire program as a consultant, a parental consultant with many steps, as you will hear and learn tonight, to assist in the gap for underserved communities, underserved children. Primarily, her passions are Black male children. The pipeline, is very serious about disrupting the pipeline of Black males going from school into our penal system. The percentages are staggering, and I'm going to read you a few of them. But first, I want to introduce to you formally Dr. Sheila Thomas. Welcome to Safe Space.
Thank you so much, Shelby. I'm excited to be here this evening, and thank you for this space to share my message as well as all the messages that you're sharing with others, the positive things that you're speaking about. So this is a wonderful platform, and I'm excited to be here tonight to share my message with you.
You have a very powerful message, Dr. Thomas. I try to talk to or get to know or ask questions, and I have to apologize to you first because I haven't spoken to you as much as I have some of my past guests, but I did spend quite a bit of time looking at your link tree. It is very vast. It gives information regarding your counseling, being able to have you come in personally to do speaking engagements, for you to come in and autograph your book, which is along the lines of your passions, one of your passions, because I noticed your passion was parenting advocacy, teaching actions to support your children, keeping them literate, and closing the gap of the disparity of kids in our neighborhoods, and predominantly Black males. Black females are actually performing pretty well as far as societal measures go. They are the largest increase in education segment of our society. Their pays are exponentially increasing in comparison to our Black male counterpart. And so I see that one of your passions, you said to me, were Black males. And it could be because you are a mother of three, I'm sure, wonderful Black males. You're a wife, again, an author. Would you like to tell us a little about your personal life and your sons? You share whatever you like, and then we'll get right into your mission.
Yes, thank you so much, Shelby. So yes, I'm a mother of three sons. I have a 37-year-old, 33-year-old, and a 14-year-old. His, mine, ours, but they're all our wonderful sons.
Uh-huh.
And I've always been passionate about being a mother. With my firstborn son, my son James, he's 33 at the time. But as a young boy, we read books. I took him on adventures, our own personal field trips. But reading and communication was very important with him. And then with my second son, Eric, my baby boy Eric, same thing. Just continue to embrace education and impart education into him to let him know that's important. Build that solid foundation at home with reading and communication because that's the key. So those are my three sons, and then I also have a grandson. So all boys, yes, all boys. So I love it. And as an educator, I worked in school systems where there were a lot of girls, but there were boys. And I saw a lot of the things that were happening with our boys and how they were treated. And so I embrace or just niche down to not only just work with all parents, because I still work with all parents, but I knew that there was a special space needed to work with Black boys.
Mhm.
Because as you're about to mention, the statistics show that our boys are conditioned really in schools and by administrators to move from school to the prison pipeline. So I know what I did as a mom with my sons by making ensuring that they had a solid foundation. And so I decided to create my curriculums to ensure that all boys, all parents have what they need so their sons could be successful as well.
I was, this is a great time to mention some of the things that I've read and looked up. By the age of 25, 15.8% of Black males, 6.3% of Hispanic males, and only 1.7% of white males are expected to have served time in state prison. Federal prison by the age of 40, 26.6% of Black males, 12.7% of Hispanic males, and only 3.5% of white males have served time. We are disproportionately, actually, for females, because I read some stats on females as well, but of course the males are higher, but we are disproportionately more likely to spend time in prison being people of the African American persuasion than any other race. And the number, the gap is so wide, it's quite wide between Hispanics and African Americans, but it's so wide between white Americans and Black Americans until it has to make me wonder our judicial system and all of the things that happen way before the kids get to the court system, or the young men and women get to the court system, where they're being failed. And I was always taught in my upbringing that everything begins at home. And I was reading in your link tree about how you want to empower parents to be able to advocate for their children and helping them to build a more solid educational background by using your 8-step approach of parental counseling, engaging them to promote social and emotional competent and academic success, as well as your 5 steps, your 5 love language tests, and using that in approaching your children. Can you expound? I know it's a lot on all of that and how it works together, and how, an interesting question for me, being from the African American community and seeing how some things have evolved. I don't have children. I don't work in the school system, but I have a number of family members and friends. I wonder sometimes, do you get pushback, is where I'm going, from the parents? Are they insulted? Or the ones that reach out to you, of course, are open. But say you're invited into a school system and this is something that's being done across the board. How is that been accepted in our community as well?
Honestly, it's been widely accepted in all the areas that I've worked in. My program has been completed here in Valdosta City Schools, as well as Brooks County Schools and a couple of other places. And it has been well received because it's your approach too. It's your demeanor. It's the way you approach a parent. I don't step into the arena, with this air that I know it all.
Right.
I always approach parents with I understand and I
Mm-hmm.
care.
Mm-hmm.
That's what matters. And then even though my sons are academically sound, I also let them know that they're not perfect. And I also let them know that I'm not the perfect parent. So that's important. In order to help parents, I have to build a relationship with them. So it's my approach. So when I walk into the arena, I walk into the school, wherever it may be, it's hello, my name is Sheila Thomas. I know I have a title, but sometimes titles can, people are taken aback.
Intimidate.
Yeah, they're intimidating. So they're taken aback with those titles. So it's, if they want to call me Dr. Sheila or Dr. Thomas or Miss Sheila, I don't care. It doesn't matter, with me. So my approach is I'm a parent coach. I'm here to assist you to ensure that your sons are successful. Let me tell you the things that I did wrong, or let me tell you the things I did right, So that's my first approach. And so you were speaking of the statistics, and those statistics allude to the older males, 25 and 40 years old.
Mhm.
But what I've seen is what's happening with these babies, preschoolers, kindergartners, and how they are treated in preschool. Little black boys who walk into the room and they're always said to be that bad little boy or he can't read. And I've experienced that on my own with my own sons and how sometimes they were treated badly. But I was always able to advocate for them and to stand in the gap, to share with the teachers. These are my expectations. Also, what are your goals and expectations in the classroom? Now, how can we bridge the gap and work together so I can ensure that my James and my Eric are successful? So those are the things that I'm teaching parents how to word your go in and not be combative, but to let
Mhm.
them know, I want to know how we could work together and bridge that gap. So that's very important. So it's been well received. So you mentioned some of the components of my program. The number one thing that parents need to understand is parenting, who they are. So a lot of us, the way we were parents sometimes doesn't work. And even how we parent an older sibling. For an example, the way I raised James is different from the way I've raised Eric in some areas, academically pretty much the same. But they're 14 years apart. So I had to do some things differently. The main thing was communication. So that's one of the first skills that I teach parents is open communication. I have a good relationship with both of my sons. And with my son, Eric, he knows he can come talk to me. He gave me the sweetest Mother's Day card where he says, thank you for being a listening ear, for being an encourager, for not always coming back at me. He can come tell me anything and I can ask why. Okay, share this with me. And so I'm teaching parents how to communicate with your children. Look at your parenting style. Is it working? Are you working on an old parenting style that you learned years ago? That doesn't work. These children are different. And I hate saying that, but the world is different. The world
It is.
has, so we have to adapt, not saying with all the bad of the world, but some of the things of the world that are happening, we have to understand and make those changes in order to meet the needs of our children. So communication is number one with our parenting style. Then the second one is understanding children and how they learn. In school we learn about the multiple intelligences. We have to understand if does your child like to read? Is he linguistic, mathematical, musical, auditory learner? What kind of learner is he? And so you need to build on that. And you won't understand all of that until a child really matures to about age 3 or 4. And then once you know how he or she learns, then you're able to talk to the teacher and say, hey, for instance, my sons are musical. So when they went to school, they were always tapping on desks and humming. And the teacher didn't understand why. So I
Mhm.
told them they're musical. Their mom is musical. I played an instrument. They play the drums. Not saying it was okay for them to tap on the desk, but so the teacher understands they do that because it's musical and it calms them down. So when you're having a cheerful moment in the classroom, why don't you let them do a drum roll? That way you're engaging them. You're accepting the behaviors that they have in a positive way. So
And
that's
connecting.
a connection, making that connection. So that's a way. And then just on about building a solid foundation with reading and literacy and math skills and even the social skills, that's important. So even in my book here, Raising Brilliant Black Boys, I wrote this book, and I don't think I had it when we were at the conference. So this journal, this book, I even speak about understanding your child's identity, understanding how to connect them with social challenges, with bullying, and all those things. Parents need that knowledge. They need to understand what's going on in social media, what children are dealing with at school, because we think sometimes that, oh, nothing's wrong with that child. But we see now mental health and mental wellness happens with everyone, even small
Yeah.
children who are taking their lives. So you need to connect and listen to your child when he or she says some things are going on, some things are happening. So that's just a little in depth about the various topics that are in my parent curriculum.
Um, I noticed something that I came across very probably the first time was able to take a personality test was with my employer, probably over 25 years ago, which was the, um, well as I know the name of it, oh my goodness, it totally escapes me, but it breaks everything down by how dominant your personality is, how social you are or passive you are. And I see that you did one in a part of your forms of how you compile all this information and how you approach dealing with the child, called the five love language test. And that
Mhm.
is all a part of your link tree. And of course, I want you to give all of your information as to where people can contact you, find your book, and all of that, because it's very important and awesome information. But you combine that with the steps of how you parent, and you break it down into positive parenting, understanding your child, as you just alluded to, effective communication, which you spoke of, knowing where your child's talent lies, whether it's mathematical, whether it's music, or whether, and all of that makes sense. So in tutoring or facilitating your programs, how do you individualize, or do you just target it through making the parent the advocate and being teaching them how to communicate in the school settings? Because let's just face it, we're going to be politically correct here, but there are barriers that we as people of color face when we go into a school setting. Sometimes, as you have alluded to as well, our boys or our children are labeled, um, that they, if they don't test well on standardized tests, that they need to be placed in remedial courses in math and reading, when in many cases that is not the case at all. They don't possess sometimes the vocabulary, the worldly knowledge, things of that nature to be able to take these tests that are not designed for them and do well on them. So as a parent, I guess I'm asking, how do you teach the parents how to advocate for them through these steps in a timely manner? Because Dr. Thomas, you have a huge program here. It's a lot of information. Um, so to capsulize it and to be able to allow the parents to be able to grasp it and to be effective, how do you find yourself doing that? I guess is what I'm trying to ask you.
And that's why, a lot of people say, "Well, you do a lot." But when you look at it all and see how I've combined it, at first I was all over the place. I was. And as a parent coach, parenting is the umbrella, but I've niched down to parents of Black boys. Of course, when I go into school systems, I mostly cater to all parents, but
Hmm.
individually, I cater to parents of Black boys. All cultures can, tap into me or contact me, but my niche is parent of Black boys. And so if a parent of a Black son reaches out to me, of course, I'm going to ask them and have them to complete certain tests that I have embedded into my program. They're not out there, but it's things that I do for an intake process to see
Okay.
where you are, or what relationship do you have with your son? Do you understand how your son learns? So those are a few questions that I asked in the questionnaire. And the five love languages, and I pulled it up here. That is not my concept. It was by, Gary Chapman. So it's something, a piece in I reference him that I pulled in. But that is very important because the five love languages is based on the five things: acts of love, receiving gifts, quality time, words of
Excellent.
affirmation, and physical touch.
Mhm.
And so a parent needs to understand what his or her child's love language is, not their own. Because, for instance, with my son Eric, I'll just say he likes quality time. He does not like physical touch. He is not a hugger. And
Yeah.
so, for as a parent, I would need to know that he wants me to spend quality time with him. But if I say, give me a hug, he's no, back up, you know? And so I understand what's needed to ensure that he gets what he needs to make him feel better, to make him feel important. Now, for a parent as an advocate, he or she can now share that with the teacher. My
Mhm.
son, his love language, his quality time, or acts of kindness, or gifts. He doesn't like physical touch. So that teacher knows, don't give him a hug. Because if a
Right.
teacher reaches out to hug that child and he pulls back, she'll think he has an attitude
Right.
or something's wrong. So
Right.
if the parent can advocate and say, this is my child, he doesn't like physical touch. Now the teacher understands that. That may sound kind of deep, but it's really important because that is something just when a child pulls back, because I've seen that. And I said, what's wrong with him? Before I understood these concepts. But now that when I understood them as a teacher, I understood how to approach that child who only wanted me to give him a little pencil or a star. That gift, a little star or a sticker, is what motivated him to learn. And so parents need to understand it. So that's part of the intake process, to understand if the parent knows their child, if they're digging deeper to, or doing the things to make that connection and relationship with their child. So all of that is part of the positive parenting, knowing how to approach and do the things that'll make your child feel loved, nurtured, and cared for.
That is awesome because I'm very familiar with the love language quiz. Um, it was the DISC profile that I initially took at work, and uh, which led me eventually to take it again about 15 years later. And it's amazing as we mature and as we change, we truly change because
Yes.
my personality traits had swung almost from one end of the pendulum to the other,
Mm-hmm.
from my 20s to my 40s. And I would really like to take it now in my 50s to see where I am. And I did do the love language. You know, what's your love language? What's your apology language? How do you handle anger? Do you feel appreciated in not only work, but in your life, in your home, with your friends? And ironically, I was blessed to be able to take it at my church with those that I serve with on the different ministries that I volunteer on. And I use that information when dealing with adults to this
Mm-hmm.
day. I
Yeah.
know that one of my closer friends, she is affirmation driven,
Yes.
because she does really great creativity. She does, I mean, she will work her fingers to the bone for a pat on the back. And for me, because I am probably more of a touch,
Mm-hmm.
quality time person, that blows my mind. But I
Mm-hmm.
know that about her. So
Right.
I know that I have to participate in that with her for her to receive what she needs. So I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine as an educator that is invaluable information for a parent to be able to provide, because so often now, from what I'm hearing from the educators, there's so many social issues that children have to deal with today in larger numbers, it seems, because there's nothing new under the sun. But the teachers don't have time to conclude this information the way they used to, maybe back during the day of our generation or
They do.
different times. Because even listening to my mom talk about her teachers when she was here with
Mm-hmm.
us, my experience was different. And I know listening to teachers now that my experience is different than what they're, I mean, some of them are having to comb hair, console kids that are in, and so they don't have time to get to know them. So as you said a few moments ago, a child pulling back from a hug may give a teacher a wrong type
Yeah.
of impression. And if the teacher is in my friend that I was talking to about what you do worked in a underprivileged area where she in Texas, where she had predominantly Hispanic and African American children. Well, when Caucasian teachers came into that area that maybe had not had as much experience with a little brown or black child, they have their predispositions and their beliefs. So it's easy to label a child incorrectly
Right.
if the
Exactly.
child was not easy to get to know, and their education is on a downward spiral from that point on if the parent is not in the position to advocate.
Right. Right. And that's the main point. Teachers, they're busy. They have
Hmm.
a lot on their plate. And so that's again why parents have to stand in the gap. They have to advocate. They have to make that connection with the teachers and not feel like, oh, I'm just sending my child to school, whatever happens, happen, no,
Hmm.
or I'm there if there's a problem, or a situation.
Mhm.
But I tell parents in my program that as soon as you know, even now, if what the last days of school, if you know who your son's teacher is going to be next year, go ahead and reach out to them. What I used to do is the last day of school, I would sometimes, if I found out his third grade teacher or fourth grade teacher, I would walk around to the room and say, "Hey, you're going to have my son next year," to get to know them so we can go ahead and make that connection. So
Mhm.
with parents, I say, if you can't do that, send them email a week before and say, "Hello, this is my son. These are the things we've done over the summer. He loves to read, or he loves math, or whatever it may be," to make that connection. And what happens, you brought up a great point about cultural responsiveness.
Mhm.
It's not only just with um, races that are opposite of us. I'll just use
Right.
that. Even our own sometimes don't understand how a child lives, or his or her conditions at home.
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
worked in environments that were totally different from the way I was raised.
I was about to say that their cultural, their ethnic, and then there's sometimes socioeconomic differences that teachers might not have been exposed to, and they just don't know.
They don't know. They don't know. So that's why it's important, even with the parent program. I'm reaching out to schools now to say, I love to do some professional development, which I've done it because I'm cultural responsive training with the teachers, so they understand about parents, or why parents behave certain ways. A lot of parents have to work and they cannot get to the schools during the daytime, or they may
Mhm.
not be able to answer the phone because they're at work. A lot of times you say, "I called them, they won't answer the phone." Well, they couldn't because they're at work and their boss said they cannot answer their phone. They'll get fired.
Right. Right.
So find out from that parent the why they didn't answer the phone. I tried to call you, was it a time when you were at work? And I'll try to reach out to you. When is the best time to call you? And it's
Mhm.
the way you say it too.
That's
And then
true. That's with everything.
yeah, and I just use this this term. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So if a teacher wants to show she or he really cares, they will get a better understanding of who that parent is and who that child is, and build that relationship and make those connections. That's so important. That's more important than teaching a child, because the way you treat them, that's also part of their social and emotional development. And we have to be the ones to ensure that they're okay socially, but emotionally. Those parents, if you call them as a teacher and you're saying these things, "Well, I tried reaching out to you, you wouldn't answer the phone, your child's misbehaving." And the parents like, "Well, you know what?" They're going to come back at you, and their in turn is the altercation. Another example I use is with our Black boys. I've used this in trainings. A lot of teachers don't understand that as a culture, we're jovial. We have a good time. And it's our nature to just be a little loud. It's our nature. We get together. And so I use this example of Black boys walking down the hallway, Black children. And they're having a good time. They're laughing and having a good time walking down the hallway. And as they enter the classroom, a lot of teachers, I've heard them say this: "Don't come in here with that noise," you know? And the child says, "I didn't do anything." And then there's a teacher, "You making all that noise. You talking back to me?" Now it's escalated. And
Right.
the child says, "But I didn't do anything. I was just laughing with my friends." And now the teacher's going to say, "Well, I'm writing you up because you're being, you're talking
Insubordinate.
back. Yeah, you're talking back. You're, and being insubordinate towards me. Again, I always use the term combative because that's the way a lot of teachers see our boys, as being combative,
Absolutely.
argumentative. And so, and then what happens next? They're written up. They're sent to the office. For what? For just having a good time walking down the hallway, for
Right.
laughing, for being,
Right.
enjoying their friends. So we have to look into that and understand a child. It could even be on the other end where a child is really quiet and
Mhm.
comes into the classroom and they're just sitting there. And the teacher thinks they're angry, but they may have so many things in their mind, or they may
Mhm.
just not talk a lot. But a
Mhm.
teacher think they're being, again, combative in a different way, that they won't speak or just being disobedient, in a different way. So we have to be cognizant of the ways we treat our children and ways we treat our parents, because we don't know what they're dealing with.
Mm-mm.
What a child comes into the school with, what he or she has dealt with just getting out of the cars. I've worked car rodder lines where a child has been told, get out the car, go on in, and they never got that good morning. And so one
Right.
of the things I always did as an educator was every child that walked through the hallway or in my classroom, especially in my classroom, I always said good morning and I said their names. Good morning and I said their name. Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Keisha. Good morning, James. Good morning, Eric. And one of the children told me, she said, I love that you say my name. That makes me feel important.
Right.
And
Right.
speaking and just one more subject, speaking on names, say the child's name. We tend to say, well, he has a long name, or I can't, pronounce that name. I'm just gonna call you I, or I'm gonna call you KP. No, learn to say their names. That's
Right.
part of cultural responsiveness. We have to do better. We do.
I agree with you. And so much of what you're saying, um, is just sheer kindness
Mhm,
and consideration for what you have signed up to do as an educator.
mhm,
Because I have found out more and more about what happens to some children, being a part of a program that we did at my church for a while, that I found from a friend in New Jersey that they have done ongoing. And I think we have too. We've adopted a school. Some children only eat at school.
mhm,
So we do have done a backpack program in conjunction with the neighboring school to allow them to take them home over the weekend,
mhm,
to
mhm,
put fruits, non-perishable things that they can kind of eat without being hungry all
mhm,
weekend. So if you are coming from a challenging home, as you said, you would see them get out of the car and not be handled with a lot of love. If we pay attention, sometimes you see it out in the stores when you're shopping or whatever. I can only imagine what the children bring to school with them. And if they meet much of the same thing, you said it a little differently a few moments ago. I remember how people made me feel, not what they say to me. We
mhm.
remember how people make us feel. I think you said something along the lines of they want to know how much you care.
Yeah, yes.
But it's basically the same thing. When people don't make me feel well, or they seem dismissive, or I can just tell when things have changed, and then it manifests itself in those things around us.
Mhm.
When they're not caring, when they're not paying attention, when it just keeps showing up, keeps showing up. So that's what the child remembers, and anyone actually.
Mhm. And you mentioned earlier about affirmations. So I believe in affirmations. I've actually
Mhm.
created affirmation cards. Like I say, I have a lot of stuff I do. But
Mhm.
speaking words of affirmations are very important to children, and it
Mhm.
begins when they're very young. And what happens is when you pour into a child and tell them that they're brilliant, you're smart, you're capable, you're loved, you're the best, you got this. Those words, you're beautiful, you're kind, you are a good friend. Those things are embedded to them. And when you say it over and over and over to them, and so I tell parents, and if they say that to the child, that you're beautiful, you're so beautiful. Oh, I love you. Look at you. Look in the mirror. You're so beautiful. So when a child goes to the school and someone says, get away from me, your ugly self, the child's going to say, well, you know what? My mom says I'm beautiful. So that's all that matters. They're,
That's right.
they're able to condition their minds that they're beautiful and regulate who they are and regulate their emotions without saying, I'm not ugly, don't call me ugly.
That's
They're
right.
able to regulate. So that's why affirmations are so important to use with our young children. And I say young children because it's embedded in them, it becomes a habit. It becomes a habit that happens with them over and over again. And it becomes a habit with them to control themselves and feel better about themselves. and smooth, bring themselves back into balance, when they get out of that zone of regulation, put themselves back into that safety zone.
That's very good, Dr. Thomas, because so much of what you're saying, I see in people that are 50 and 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The same educator friend that I was talking about, I think she's about 10 years older than I am. So she's in her mid 60s. And she says to me all the time, and her father has been dead since 1992. Daddy always told us that we're no better than anyone else. We're not less than anyone else. And we're
Mm-hmm.
no more important to anyone else except to your mom and I. She
Mm-hmm.
repeats that to this day. And I think her dad has been dead since 1992. That being said, I've watched her navigate her life based upon those words. And what I mean by that is that she was always kind, very in tune, gratuitous natured teacher, paying attention to the things that you speak of and that we have spoken of tonight. Also, in her personal relationships, she really didn't stay in relationships when people didn't treat her well or made her feel that she was worthy, to the level in which her father had affirmed in her as a child that she was. It kept her balanced emotionally. It
Mm-hmm.
kept her in a place of not lending herself to be abused emotionally or physically in romantic relationships or even friendships.
Awesome.
It balanced her out. So I can see the manifestation in her life, in my life, in others' lives of things from this five love language test, of the affirmations that you speak of, all of these things. Yes, children are different. Yes, the times we live in are different. The word speaks of that the children would be different as time goes on. However, there are foundational things that will never change, that are principled in the word of God.
And that is love. The foundation of it all is love. As you were speaking of this, the main thing I tell parents is a communication, loving, nurturing parent. If you do all those things, your child will be okay. And so that's what affirmations are about, love. That's what the five love languages is about, loving your
Mm-hmm.
child and giving he or she what they need to be successful, to regulate their social emotional development, and to just be that, always standing in the gap, and to be a role model. I do want to mention that as well. We as role models have to show our boys and girls how to treat
How to
others,
act. That's right.
how to act, how to
Mm-hmm.
succeed. My sons see that, they say, "You're always working." I've always been a worker, a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
Their dads are hard workers. And so they see that. And so they will also be workers. My sons are, one's an educator at a university and the other's going to school to be an educator. So that means, hey, did something right, for them to want to
Absolutely.
be educators. So we have to be the role models to show them how to live spiritually, how
Mm-hmm.
to live financially,
Mm-hmm.
socially, emotionally, how to handle life, because things are going to happen. And so we
Mm-hmm.
have to be the role models to not go off the deep end when things happen in
That's
public,
right.
to treat people the way, because they're always watching us. Even when they're
Always.
funny, they're always watching everything that we do. I'm sorry, my dog is barking.
It's okay.
But they're always watching us. So we have to be not, and we're not perfect. That's the
No.
thing about this. We're not perfect, because I said, we're always learning, and life is about learning. But once we have that wisdom and knowledge, we have to pass it on. So their children can say, or they can tell their children, your grandmother or your grandfather did these different things, and I want to ensure that you also have a great life like I had.
Absolutely. And it does make a difference. I think sometimes there are situations that we do have to be sensitive to as parents and even as neighbors and definitely as educators, that single moms, dads have a little more challenges sometimes to, as you alluded to earlier, maybe answer the phone, maybe make it to the meetings, maybe the financial obligations of what's needed at school comes a little slower. But I think using these tools, first starting with kindness and love, um, can be a part of, as you said, in all of this material I read of yours, in equipping them to
Yeah.
advocate properly in the circumstances that we have to navigate in society, in education. I would be remiss not to acknowledge sometimes the barriers that we've spoken of earlier with color, with socioeconomics, with cultural differences, with everything that this life brings that they don't exist. But if we are equipped to combat them in a calm, mature, not
Yes.
emotional way, it's going to be the best end for our children, which ultimately should be the end goal. We want them to equip themselves and have better lives than we have, even when we've done pretty well for ourselves. You want
Mhm.
them to do better
Right.
in the ways that are specific for their life
Right.
because they are different people.
Exactly.
Well, I want to thank you so much for this conversation. And I want to encourage everyone to reach out to purchase your book. We'll start with that. It is called Raising Brilliant Black and Brown. That's the course, boys. The book
Mhm.
is called Raising Brilliant Black Boys. Can you tell our audience how they can find it, where they can purchase the book and the workbook?
They can be purchased on my website, and I'll put it in the chat. Everything is on my website, my books, my affirmation cards, the courses. The course Raising Brilliant Black and Brown Boys is a pre-recorded course, and it also comes with the workbook. There are 4 modules, and basically those 4 modules are what we just talked about: parenting styles, communication, building that solid foundation. So those are modules that parents can listen to on their time. It's 40, I think $47, and they just click on and get all the information. There's a workbook, there are activities for them to do, like I said, the love language course and other things that will help them to assess where they are with their parenting and the needs of their children. So that course is available online. I also have my course Paces, Parents Advocating for Their Child's Educational Success.
Right,
That's the one with 8 modules. That
right.
course is usually held in schools or churches, or for events with groups of parents, diverse parents, also for, parents of Black boys as well, but it's an overall course. But I broke the one down for Black boys to the 4 modules. There's some things differently that I offer in that course. And then for my books, Raising Brilliant Black Boys, this book here, like I say, I mentioned it's the 4 things that are part of the modules that are embedded in here. But what this is a research-based book or magazine, some have called, that I've written based on things as an educator. You mentioned I've been an educator over 34 years now, with 35.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm retired. I retired from the school system in 2020, went back for 2 more years part-time, but I continue to work as a college supervisor for at the local college for student teachers, and I work for other entities as well as in education, as well as a Bright from the Start trainer. So I do a lot. I do a lot. But so this is a research-based book that has information for parents. But what I also included in this book that I'm excited about, I also give my spin of the things that I did with my sons. For instance, teaching my sons how to navigate societal challenges. So just talking to them about the difficulties
Awesome.
that happens in the world and how they handle
Awesome.
that. And then the parent also has homework, their homework pages. So along with it is a journal. So, and I have a bigger copy of the journal, but the journal has pages, activity pages for the parents to write and take notes in and do the activities as well. So I'm really proud of that because it took a lot of work, but there's pertinent information that I think will really help our parents of Black boys. And as you can see behind me, I have my books that I've written. My book, GR's Biggest Fan. I actually have the second edition of this book. And this book I wrote about my sons and how, as a mom, I always supported them, no matter if they were on a swing or in the spelling bee or playing baseball or basketball. And at the end, they found something they love to do, which is to play in the marching band. And so my 33-year-old, he played in the band at high school and at Morehouse College. And now he's an assistant band director for Fisk University.
That's
And
awesome.
and then my 19-year-old, he played in the high school band and he's in the band at North Carolina A&T. And another reason I do the work, just a little, it's got to put this plug in, is because they were academically sound. And I tell people I don't say this to brag, but my son James, 33-year-old, he went to Morehouse College and had a tuition free. Then he went on to University of California, Irvine, master's degree, doctoral degree, didn't pay a dime for either
Oh, what
one.
a blessing.
And
I
so
think you
he,
shared that with me when I saw you, and I was
yeah,
blown away.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm still blown away myself sometimes, because the story is with both my sons. They say, Mommy, you were so hard on us. And in the summer times, you made us turn off the television for 2 hours to do work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just 3 days a week. And they say I was the meanest mom, but 2 hours, 2 days,
But it
3 days
made
a
a
week.
big difference. My mom made me study and do things in the summer
Yeah.
too. It
And
really
now they
did.
say they appreciate it. My son James said,
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. So, I
Absolutely.
tell parents, so the things I did, I want other parents to know. I don't want to keep it to myself. I want to share with the world. I do it. Of course, yeah, I want to make money doing this, but God has gifted me with this talent to be able to share. So I want to just give. And I sometimes think I give away more than I even make money on because he's blessing me. He's really
Right.
blessed me. I know he opportunities such as this to share my information. And behind me, my other books, Mommy's Little Sunshine, another book about a mother's love for her son. Yes, I Can is a coloring book for boys. And as I mentioned, I have affirmation cards, and the 40 cards have an affirmation on one side, and on the other side is a parent tip to teach the parents exactly
Wow.
how to apply the affirmations and to engage in activities with their sons. So it's a lot that I'm doing. I try, my best friend says I need to turn my education brain off, but it's hard
No,
when
you
it's your
don't. No, you
passion.
don't.
It's
It's
your
needed,
passion.
Dr. Thomas. It's really needed. And you can tell that it's your passion. You smile, actually smile, and you can hear smiling from your voice when you speak of it. You know it's your passion. And can I tell you something? I feel the same way. You want to make money in your gift, but I just believe we cannot outdo God. And you get the blessings in all types of other ways. We're in good health. We
Yes.
have a beautiful, clean place to lay our head. And who knows what is down the road? The blessings come in all types of ways. They may not always be monetary. And then one day, all of it may come at one time. Who knows? And
Who
we'll
knows?
start to give that away too. So
That's
it
it.
is wonderful. All of the things that you're able to do, all of your tools, the skills that you have, they were not given to you and formulated for you just to hold on to. They were given to you and formulated for you to bless the world. And the more people that can get a hold of this that need it, you will go on and on and on and on, even unbeknownst to you. Even when God calls you home, that you have left and deposited in the earth will live.
Legacy.
It will live. And it's outside of your own children.
Yes.
It I saw a video on your link tree of a little boy that is social media famous called Samaj.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
his tutor was teaching him from, I think, the JB, the first version of
Uh-huh.
your JB. What's
Yes.
the name of JB
JR.
book?
JR is being changed.
JR. I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
That's right. And
Yes.
she was reading
Uh-huh.
it to him, and I thought it was so cute. And then another thing, I just want you to continue because we'll keep on talking. I want you to continue to give
No
your
problem.
information out because oh no, your link tree has wonderful testimonials from moms of how you have blessed them and blessed their sons and how it has changed their lives. So I want people to be able to contact you. I also see at the bottom of your information that you have a newsletter. How often is it released? It's very easy to sign up here when they go into your website. That you ask for the name, the last name, and an email address, and they subscribe. How
Mhm.
often is that released?
I don't do them, I'm not a spammer. I
Hmm.
do it, if God has given me something that I need to release, I try to do it at least monthly. But I don't just create a newsletter to get people to buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff.
Right. It
So
just says tips, that you give tips. You're not
yeah,
advertising anything.
as
Um, it doesn't come across that way.
hmm
You're available for speaking engagements, author visits with your books, and of course your parental coaching. She is available on every platform imaginable. Imagine, safe space audience. There is no reason that you cannot reach this very gifted and talented young woman. She is available on YouTube. You can connect with her on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. As I said, you can schedule the author visits with the book. And
and
then
those
you,
are so much fun. Oh my
I
gosh.
bet they are with
I
your
love
children.
doing author visits and reading my story, and it's engaging. We do activities, so schools call, and I go and read to the kids. I love it. I love it. And
I
what
bet that is fun.
I've done with the second edition of the book, I also added activity pages in the back of the book, and there are comprehension questions and activity pages. So it makes it more, ah, you know how that is sometimes. So the parent will be able to ask the child questions to help with reading, because literacy is really my foundation. That's my platform as well, to ensure that our boys and girls are able to read and that reading is not a chore.
Right.
So that's when I teach the reading component in my parenting class. I teach parents how to make reading fun for their children and not a chore for them.
I got, I got you. It is something that's very important, and you can tell children that grew up um, with reading as a hobby, not a
Okay.
chore.
Yeah, right.
um, Even as adults, it's still a joyful thing. And it's so important. My spiritual mom says to me all the time that she had not gotten the opportunity to travel as extensively as she'd like
Mhm.
as of yet, but that books took her all over the world because she's an avid reader. And I think avid readers have very active imaginations. They are very creative. And I think it lends to all of that. The more
Mhm.
you read and the more you expose yourself to information and diversity of what you're reading, I think it just adds to building you as a person and broadens your horizon.
Right, right.
Again, can you give your website so they have that one way to connect to you with you? It'll also be in the credits of the show. We'll make sure that it's in there, but you can give it verbally as well.
Okay, again, it's drsheila.thomas.com, DRSHEILA Thomas.com. And everything is out there, the courses, more information about myself. So go check it out.
I'm sure prayerfully that someone will reach out to you when they see this. And who knows, you might have to take your show a long way away on the road.
Well, it's funny. I was going to mention it earlier, and I said no. But back in August, I asked my prayer to God. I said, Lord, I want to give my message on many stages and platforms. And when I asked, I promise you, it's like an explosion. He has placed me on stages that I never imagined that I'd be able to speak on. Your podcast. I'm not a person that looks at numbers or whatever it may be,
Right,
because
right.
anywhere that I could spread my message and give the knowledge of positive parenting is a platform. So he has opened so many doors, and I'm able to share this information. Jeremiah 29:11, he has a plan for me, and I see the beautiful end that he has for me, but I'm still
Mhm.
it's some of I don't know all that he has planned for me. So I'm reaching, for everything that he has for me. I'm just accepting it and moving forward with it. So thank you for this opportunity to share on your platform. And as you speak, I just know that this message will resonate with so many, and doors will continue to open. So I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share.
It is my pleasure. It's my pleasure to have you. And I know whether the numbers are few or large, that it is going to land where it needs to land. And it's going to be the answer to someone's prayer, because this is a serious issue and it's a very pertinent issue for today. And I think it will only become in larger demand if our society continues in the way that it has in the last 2, 3 decades. It's very much so changed in the way education is facilitated, especially in public schools,
Mhm.
especially. And I don't know if it's all for the better. The kids are getting lost so often, depending on the things that they have to combat. But we could talk about that all evening. I thank you again for coming. I'll make sure all of your information is listed with the show. You all can also contact Dr. Thomas through Safe Space if you like. Of course, we're on YouTube, Safe Space with Shelby Arrington, also Facebook and Instagram. I have a website. It is called Hope, HOPEATSAFESPACE.com. Hope at safespace.com with the word at written out in the whole sentence. Again, thank you so much for your time this evening, Dr. Thomas. It was time well spent, and this information was very, very good, very extensive, and anointed. And I know it's again going to bless someone. It blessed me to know
Thank
that you're here. And prayerfully, you can be duplicated around the world, or you'll just go around the world doing it yourself. We'll just see.
Yes.
I can't wait to see what God is going to do with you. And thank you so much again. Thank you all for coming by Safe Space. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you the next time. This is Shelby from Safe Space. Good night, Dr. Tom.
Good night.